and welcome to another episode of Apex Legends Deep Dive. And today's legend is Valkyrie.
A lot of you are gonna wake up tomorrow with sore necks, or, be dead.
On today's episode, we will be looking at all the perks and details for Valkyrie and what is best to use while you're in game and anything that could benefit you to make your playstyle better. Before we begin, I would just like to say if you're here watching this video, I really appreciate you stopping by and taking the time in your day to check it out. If you would like, hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with all my content and leave a like on the video if you're enjoying this series of Apex Legends Deep Dive. Enjoy. Alright, so Valkyrie, or Valk for short, is the final legend in the skirmisher class. So just a quick reminder, all the skirmishers have been introduced, and now this means obviously that all the skirmishers can reveal care packages when they come into play while in a match. Also remember that when scanning these care packages, they will give you points towards your team Evo Shield points. So if you keep scanning these packages, you'll keep getting more points for your Evo Shield. When Valk was introduced into Apex Legends, it was a great character due to her amazing ultimate, which gave the team basically a free jump tower anytime, right? So like I remember when they first announced Valkyrie, and then I remember that everyone was saying like, wow, this is great. Like, this is before we had the evac tower that we have now. And, it was, everyone was thought, wow, what a great thing to have. Now you could just balloon anytime you want. Now we were all skeptical at first to obviously see how this played into the game. So when she finally launched, I remember the first couple of days, it took some time for them to figure out what's the best way and how to combine her playstyle. And then slowly but surely, she became the essential player to have on any team. And I remember them eventually moving this towards competitive. And I remember in those competitive tournaments, I remember seeing 4 or 5 Valks, like I think it was like ring 5, and then everyone just Valked just in the air. And I remember seeing in one of the matches, I was watching one of the Pro League matches, it just said I just saw 4 or 5 Valks just like launching into the air, just trying to see where they land, So like if it was in the world or something. There was also another way to outmaneuver anybody with her jetpack if you had the right controls. So basically, it got a little bit out of hand, because you can really, if you learn how to jetpack strafe in a way, you could easily outmaneuver a lot of people. So obviously it got a little bit out of hand, and then she eventually got nerfed. She kind of got nerfed almost as bad as Horizon did. Slowly but surely she was pushed away being that essential characters to have, because she no longer, technically her ultimate is only good for either a couple of things. She was not the character to use to escape long distances or be able to rotate as much anymore. So eventually she kind of got pushed down to the bottom of the pick rate list. But I think these perks that they kind of added have kind of helped her a little bit to be a little bit viable again, to at least play her every once in a while. All right, let's do an introduction to Valkyrie's abilities. Valkyrie has a passive called VTOL Jet. This allows you to press jump while in the air, and it engages Valk's jetpack. This passive was very good when she was released, because like I said, you could use the jetpack more often, because the fuel that the jetpack uses was not as consumed as it is now. It would last a good amount of time. And it would recharge as well. It would refuel pretty quick as well. So that's another reason why it was very good to have the jetpack. It can also be used to reach high places, trying to get better angles and reposition yourselves to fire at your opponent. I believe now the fuel on the jetpack only lasts about 5 seconds. So if you stay holding it in the air, you would only stay up in the air for like about 5 seconds before your fuel runs out. Alongside this, she also has a hidden passive, which is called the VTOL HUD. What this does, it allows you to scan enemies while you're in the air. So anytime you're in the air, Valk will have a green screen HUD that you can see, and it would ping enemies in a triangle shape for you to see. Her tactical is called Missile Swarm. It allows you to fire a 4x3 swarm of mini rockets, which damages and disorients enemies. Your tactical is great to hit enemies when they're behind cover, obviously, and of course you just have to aim it in the right space for them to be effective. If you do hit your enemy with them, it will stun them for 2 seconds. Cooldown for this is 30 seconds. Her ultimate is called Skyward Dive. This allows you and your teammates to launch in the air and skydive. So similar to a jump tower, it's a great method to rotate into a new position or escape if you're stuck between teams. Now this was essential before. because the height that you would get from taking this ultimate was pretty high. I'm gonna take a wild guess. I think it was 190 meters, maybe 200 meters. I don't remember exactly how far up you could go, but it was pretty high. But obviously when it was nerfed, it quickly turned into an ability just to use as a strategic ability, that it is used at the right time, no longer just a hurry up and escape, you know, just throw it up and let's go. Now with the height change, it did kind of like, you're not going to be able to like run away real far anymore. So, and I think that's what happened. I think just people started abusing the escaping and just be able to get away pretty far, because like I said, you could go really high with this. Cooldown for this is 3 minutes. And again, this could be used also not just as a escape, it could also be used as a recon tool, since you're able to scan enemies while you're in the air. So just make sure to use it wisely. All right, let's take a look at level 2 upgrades for Valkyrie. Option 1, Afterburners. Launch 15% higher with Skyward Dive. This perk allows you to go up an extra 20 meters, I believe. Currently, without this perk active, the base height for the ultimate is about 135 meters, give or take. But if you use this perk, you can go up to maybe 160 meters. I would say this perk is not a bad perk to have, depending on where you base jump. So for example, on Olympus, if you go to the Bonsai Towers, it would be a pretty good space to be in, because you can get some real good height with this active. So just remember, if you want to combine it with that, you could. Also remember, you can use it, again, you can use it as a recon tool. So this would give you more height to stay away from the enemies below. Stay up a little bit higher, harder to shoot. But in my opinion, I just think it's not a bad option to have, even though it might not be the original height when Valk launched, but it's still decent enough to use. Option 2, Aerial Expert. Improved jetpack handling. This perk allows you to have the extra mobility when you're using your jetpack. So when I tested this in the firing range to see how much movement it added to the jetpack, well, there is better movement for sure. Is it the same as before she was nerfed? No, unfortunately, since the fuel consumption is unchanged, this effect for the movement will not be as noticeable unless you time it correctly with all the burst from the jetpack and just get it all done in one go. Then I could see it being a little bit viable for movement. But of course, maybe I think with another perk that we'll mention next, there could be potential for success with this perk active. All right, let's take a look at level 3 upgrades for Valkyrie. Option 1, full coverage. Widen missile swarm pattern from 4x3 to 3x5. So this perk allows you to change the pattern of your mini rockets to a wider area of effect. I honestly think this perk is decent to have. You know, your mini rockets are a good tactical for slowing down enemies if you hit every missile. And since you're getting a wider area of effect, this will give you more chances to hit more enemies if they're lined up together. So you could hit maybe a full squad with this, if you time it correctly, of course. Now I will say that it may not be game breaking or the best perk in the world, because if your enemy is paying attention to the rows, and they are shown when you throw your missiles, they can escape quickly, because the rows it's 3 rows and 5 columns. So if you can picture that, it's 3 rows and 5 columns. It could be it's a little bit more quicker to get out if you slide out the right way. So just keep that in mind. Option 2, full tank. Increase jetpack fuel by 25%. This perk allows you to have more fuel when you're using your jetpack. So currently, I think you could use a total of maybe 5 to 6 bursts from the jetpack before you run out, and with this perk active, you will be able to get maybe about 7 bursts at the most. That's how much the 25% increase helps. And if you hold the jetpack for constant use, you get about an extra 2 seconds. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I think this is good if you use it with the improved handling perk together, the one I mentioned before. I tested it in the firing range to see how much it would help, and I will say it was better with this active as well. The only way I can see this being used if that is more of your playstyle, right? So if you like to have the jetpack fuel with a little bit of improved handling, it would help with your handling and being able to maneuver a little bit better with Valkyrie and using her jetpack, right? All right, so for my final verdict for Valkyrie and choosing which 2 perks are best to use while in a match will have to be Afterburners and full coverage. Now, again, I am choosing these perks based on basically what is better for the team and not necessarily just for the legend, or maybe just depends on the playstyle that you have, of course. So the reason I say Afterburners, or Afterburners and full coverage, and why they could be viable for a team, you know, Afterburners will give you that extra space to fly you and your team away in those tough situations, giving you the advantage either to rotate in front of a team that, you know, may not have a tower and they're trying to run on foot. You can beat them, you can fly over them, beat them, and then you can get the advantage over them. I just see that being more viable overall in game than having to improve the handling, but you know, that's just my opinion. And as for full coverage, I think it just gives a better, bigger area to attack on, which is better to have than the extra jet fuel, in my opinion. Of course, I think you can manage the jet fuel if you're careful with it and only use it when it's needed, you know, but ultimately I think this is probably the best combination to have, is afterburners and full coverage, just for that case. Now I just want to throw this out there as well. If that's not really, you know, if you think that, you know, these 2 perks are not it, you could always test out the other 2, you know, and see how it goes. Because again, I just think that, in my opinion, I think that those other 2 perks are for more just basically just helping the legend out, which can be helpful, right? So it will, like, again, I'm only choosing these 2 perks just to see which one benefits the team in order to get a win, because I think at the end of the day, it just depends on the player. But just, you know, if you want to try different things out, you can. Well, there it is, everyone. That is all the details on Valkyrie and how each perk can benefit you or not while you're in game. I appreciate everyone that stopped by to check out the video. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe to check out all uploads, shorts, and streams. This is the end of the skirmisher class range and all the legends who fall into that class. We will be moving on to the next range, the recon class, and we'll be starting off with Bloodhound. Enjoy the rest of your day and never stop gaming. Amaru out. Peace.